Good evening. It is now 6 o'clock and we do have enough of the membership to have a quorum. So we'll go ahead and start the meeting this evening. First item on the meeting agenda is to review the minutes from November the 18th, 2021. So it's been a while since we have met. And those are on the second and third page. If you haven't had a chance to look at them yet, not very long. But if we've already looked at these, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Have a motion from Mr. Burton on approving the minutes. Do I have a second? Ms. Overman with a second. Any other discussions? Hello, Ms. Amber. Any discussions on the minutes? All in favor say aye. All opposed, the like sign. The minutes are approved. Now tonight for discussion items on item number 3, the implementation of the pay scale is item number A. So that's what we'll go into first. And as you know, we have talked about the pay scale at some length. We all should be somewhat familiar with it by now. However, if there are any questions about any parts of this pay scale, now would be a great time to discuss these things. Mayor Chambers, I'd like for you to maybe go into it a little bit as to some of the things, where we are at this hour, and if there's anything you would like to add that might be new since we last worked on these.
All right. Well, the language you have in front of you, this is language that was sent to us by Burris Thompson Associates, who did the wage study, and this is what they have suggested to actually put into the personnel policy, how it works, how the steps work, and all that. There is another. I'm just going to briefly go over some of the other items. If you look through your packet, then you'll see the actual says 2023 payroll, and this is the steps with what the county commission did, putting in the 2.5% increase. That adjusted the numbers up, and so this is what would be the new numbers of what we did in this year's budget. So this would take into the account the COLA that was just done. And so as it would sit right now with the step numbers and grade numbers that Burris Thompson suggested, along with what we've done in the budget, this would be adjusting up their numbers to get it to where we are now. So if you want me to go through each of these as far as the language, you want me to cover each section, or you just want me to kind of hit some highlights? Or, I mean, if you've reviewed them already, or is there certain sections people have questions on, so we can focus on those?
Does anybody in the committee here or on the committee have any items? I'd almost like to hit the high points, and if there's something that is really glaring for any of the members that want to have a clarification, then we can maybe catch that as we go, if that's okay with you.
All right. At the beginning, we have just a general outline of the structure. It's 15 pay grades, and each pay grade has 16 steps. So you're graded based on the responsibilities and training and everything for your position. And obviously, the more responsibilities, more training, more education, everything that's required, the higher the step is. Also, probably, when I say responsibilities, more management responsibilities. So your department heads are obviously higher than your lowest level employee, and then the steps are based on longevity, basically. It's designed so that step 8 of each pay grade is approximately the market rate for that job. So, and each grade itself. So, like I said, the higher you go, that's more education, training, responsibilities. Between each grade, it is 11.65% progression. So if you were on grade 5 and you got a promotion and you went to grade 6, that would potentially be 11.65% increase just from moving up from one grade to the other. The market rate was determined based on a salary survey. They looked at us, surround counties that surround us, and then other counties that were kind of our like size as far as population, revenue, staff, those kind of things. And that's where they came up with it. Adjustment to the pay structure. It is subject to review periodically, and they said typically every 1 to 3 years, and that would be based on what your current market conditions are. If you've been in a time like we are, you may want to look at it more frequently than if you've got it at a time where there's not a whole lot of adjustments. And it's to be adjusted to ensure that our pay practices remain competitive with changes in the market labor market. The review will consist of gathering comprehensive salary data to benchmark the jobs, comparing market salary data for each benchmark job with our corresponding position, and then also our pay grade and pay steps. If necessary, adjusting our pay steps so that pay grade 8 of each pay grade will more accurately affect the approximate market rate for the job at that time. It says normally this is accomplished by increasing the pay steps by some common percentage. Again, that'll be determined when you review it. And they've suggested that the Human Resources Coordinator will recommend the adjustment of the pay structure for approval by the mayor and the county commission. New hire rates of pay. There is a step 0 for each job classification. That's the normal hiring step. If you look on your payroll thing, it'll basically say step 0. And Burris Thompson said you can retain that if you want to, if you just want to make that. So step 0 is what the employee would get during their 6-month probationary period. Then once they complete it, they get a step up. You can do that. Or if you want to eliminate grade 0 or pay step 0 entirely, just start people out on step 1. That's kind of up to the commission. And new hires can be set just because they come in, if they've got experience, education, training from another organization or another government or something like that, and let's say they've got 10 years of experience, whether you don't bring them in on step 1, the same with anybody that's just now coming in off the street, they can be adjusted up at the request of the department head. The department head would have to request that and give a written justification to the Human Resources Coordinator for consideration upon final approval of the mayor. And the current pay rates, qualifications, and skill levels of the existing job incumbents should be carefully considered before new employees hired above the pay grade step 0. Pay adjustments, all regular, full, and part-time employees employed before January 1st of the current calendar year, provided their performance evaluations in the acceptable range or higher, are eligible for possible pay increases. This was to put a little bit of teeth into what we already have in our personnel policy as far as the performance review. Right now, there's a review in there, but it really, other than maybe given, hey, you need to improve or something like this, there's nothing tied to it. So there's no real carrots in the current policy. So they suggested maybe looking at this. Annual increases each year. Human Resources and mayor can calculate the recommended salary increase budget based on the employees increasing to the next step, and which would be, they've got 2.50%, but I think it was actually 2.35 unless it's changed. And we could present that to the county commission in the annual budget. And of course, this would be based on the recommendation of the department heads after the performance evaluation. So you could have one employee that maybe didn't score well in their performance evaluation and they're not recommended for that step increase versus the other ones are. Structure adjustment, if it's deemed appropriate by the county commission under section E3 above, then the pay increase budget may also include an amount required by a structure adjustment. So this would normally be an amount needed to move employee pay rates to the new pay grade steps for their jobs, if needed, and if appropriate, an additional amount to mitigate any resulting pay compression, which would be if you move somebody up and then all of a sudden the divide you had between the existing employees that were a little bit higher up and them, if it compresses, you can adjust somebody up a little bit higher to make sure they stay a certain, if it's cents, dollars, whatever it is above them, percentage, whatever you want to use to measure that. And the top out the lump sum, employees' pay rates are not to exceed the maximum for their job. So once an employee reaches step 16, any other additional increases other than pay structure would be paid in the form of lump sum bonus is what they have here. Though I would, talking department heads and everything, if you've got somebody that's getting close to step 16, I think they would have been moved up a grade already. They would have been given a promotion. Performance evaluations. All employees are eligible for an increase July 1st, but they must have a written performance evaluation. which are to be completed at the end of the calendar year and submitted to the Human Resources Coordinator by March 15th. It's to be used, done using prescribed forms, which was done in the past with our forms that we have. They were actually based on employee evaluation forms from Wilson County. And the results will be discussed with the employee after approval. And it says that the new hires are to receive a performance evaluation after completion of the probationary period. Human Resources will also contribute a score depending on the employee's attendance data. Employees receiving an overall marginal unacceptable rating are not eligible to receive an increase on July 1st. And those employees be reevaluated after 60 days, but will not be eligible for an increase until the next July 1st if they get a acceptable in their performance evaluation. All eligible employees who receive an acceptable rating will be recommended to receive a salary increase based on the approved salary increase budget to be effective July 1st each year. Pay increases for employee on leaves of absence. Employees that are on approved medical or personal leave of absence on July 1st will receive the approved salary increase provided their performance evaluation was in the acceptable range or higher. If their evaluation was not completed at the end of the calendar year, then completion of the performance evaluation and eligibility for salary increase will be postponed until their return to active employment. Promotional increases, it says the definition of a promotion is the placement of an individual in a job which is a pay grade that is higher than their current pay grade. So that'll be considered a promotion. Temporary job assignments of less than 6 months are not normally considered promotion. And all promotions must be approved by the Human Resources Coordinator and the mayor. Increases in the amount. At the time of the promotion, the individual salary is to be adjusted to reflect the increased demands and responsibility of the new position. It says normally the employee's pay would be adjusted to this pay step that represents a 5 to 8% increase or more if needed to move the employee's salary to the new job pay grade step 1. Salaries of incumbents or those already in a new position and promoted individuals' credentials will be considered in determining that amount. Again, temporary reassignments, adjustments to pay rates of employees temporarily signed, which would be not less, it's for less than 6 consecutive months. Perform work at higher level jobs will be made at discretion of management. Lateral job assignment, so reassignment from one job to another in the same pay grade would be considered a lateral move, and no immediate adjustment to pay will be made. Demotion, a demotion will occur if an employee is returned or transferred to a position that's in a lower pay grade. Also, employees may voluntarily ask to move to a job in a lower pay grade, and that could either be done through a job posting or a bidding process. And whether or not a reduction in pay should occur in these situations depends on 4 considerations. The first one would be where will the employee's pay rate fall in the new lower pay grade step schedule. It says normally the employee's pay rate will be reduced to be consistent with rates of pay of other incumbents in the new job who possess similar skills and tenure. And so this one is given more weight than 2, 3, or 4, which is the other factors. And pay adjustments must be approved by the Human Resources Coordinator and the mayor. Second factor is how long the employee has been in the former job employed by the county. Third factor is was the reassignment related to the employee's performance. And the fourth factor is was the reassignment related to a reduction in force or organizational change. So though a reduction in pay may still be appropriate to maintain internal equity, even if the change is outside the control of the employee, such circumstances may be considered. Reclassification of position. A job can be reclassified if it's warranted based on significant changes in job responsibilities. To request a reclassification, department heads have to submit a revised job description to the Human Resources Coordinator. The market rate of pay of the job will be determined based on a comparison to available job data for that position or locked position. And the job will be reassigned to a different pay grade if it's indicated by the new market rate for the job. Reclassification to a higher pay grade normally would be treated as a promotion, which must be approved by the Human Resources Coordinator and mayor. And that section K above would apply to reclassification of a job to a lower pay grade. Equity adjustments are these adjustments that are necessary to correct pay inconsistencies or inequitable situations that may be occasionally necessary. Department heads may recommend these equity adjustments of up to 8% of salary and must submit a written justification for the pay adjustment. And all adjustments have to be approved by the Human Resources Coordinator and Mayor and have to be submitted with the annual budget for approval by the County Commission. And that is the end of the suggested language by Burris Thompson to implement the pay structure.
Thank you. At this moment, does anyone on the committee wish to discuss any aspects of what what we just heard the overview on as it relates to this, what we're considering here? Anybody have any questions about any of this?
Mr. Chairman, if I could add something. I know during the budget discussions, and we discussed again at the steering committee meeting, there was a request or to look at language that would say this is obviously subject to appropriation by the county commission every year as part of the budget. And when we previously looked at it, that it seems like the annual increase section, which would be where it says pay adjustments, subsection 2, and it would be the first bulleted paragraph, maybe language either inside that paragraph or as the last sentence saying annual increases are subject to appropriation by the county commission or something along those lines. I believe that's what was discussed during the budget hearings and at the steering committee earlier this month.
Yeah, that's on page 4 down at the bottom. Is that right?
As far as
No,
the
sorry.
actual language, it says say page 2, and
Page
it'll
2.
say
Okay.
pay adjustment. So it's about a third of the way down the page and looking halfway down the page where it says section 2. And it's that first bulleted section that says annual increases.
Mr. Russell, you have a question?
Hey, yeah, I was wanting to see if we couldn't verify whether or not it was 2.35 or 2.50 for the salary grade.
Mr. Jewell?
I believe what they had initially presented was 2.35 because that was the rate of inflation. My remembrance is that we rounded it up to 2.5 because it was a lot easier, more workable number. That's just my recollection on it. We could certainly go back to the minutes and try to make that determination, but whichever it is, it's strictly going to be a recommendation in the initial budget, proposed, and that amount, just like it changed this time, would be subject to change availability of funds. It may go up, it may go down, it may stay the same, but that was that's my remembrance. I think their initial proposal said 2.35. It may have said both. At one time it may have been 2.5, and one time may have been 2.35. But I do remember both of those amounts being discussed. I think it's whether you put 0 in there to be determined by the commission. They need some figure to put together a budget to present to the commission in budget and finance. So they have to have a starting point. And I think that was pretty much agreed upon in times past, is that amount would be the starting point based on the rate of inflation that we've been experiencing over the last 4 or 5 years. That's my recollection.
So as we speak to this topic, this would be in place in its original baseline, so to speak, a target idea. Obviously, the commission can go up or down at any time. So to me, being that we're going to be talking about this with the full body soon, this committee here can make a recommendation as to which one you want, 2.35 or 2.5, and then recommend it to the full body and let them decide what we want to use as a baseline. Yes?
The chart that we have here with the steps, Mayor, was that based on 2.5 or 2.35?
I just did a quick calculation on grade 5. I did step 1 and step 2, and it actually came out to like 2.44. So
Some of this is going to be lost in rounding. So I think there again, the difference between 2.35 and 2.5 is going to be literally pennies, different. So I think that's pretty much a moot point. If this is already drafted and written this way at 2.5, I'm comfortable with that. I certainly wouldn't want to change it back, and have to redo everything.
Yeah, I would concur. I think 2.5 is simple, it's easy. We all know it could be adjusted at the last minute by the commission anyway, but at least it gives us a target to start with. Any other items as we discuss this that, and that's a good one to bring up. Anything else we want to discuss as it relates to this, what we're about to consider to move forward, possibly?
One thing I think had come up in past conversations was in looking at some of the grades in the various departments. And I'm still a little unclear. On our deputies, some of them are at a grade 6, some are at a grade 5. I think we had some discussion on why that disparity was. That strictly because of what the wage study of people in those offices in other jurisdictions, or is that because of where the people are now in their longevity?
That was based on them doing a overall market rate of where they were. And so it should be based on responsibilities and jobs in comparison across the board of other counties. And that's how they came up with the grades. That's my understanding of how it worked.
I just want us to be clear on that, because I have a feeling that we may be asked to explain that difference at some point in the future. And I just wanted to make sure that we all knew what the rationale for that was.
And one of the things that they discussed and as part of the, regular evaluation, if we want to do it every year, you can come back and say, hey, we need to adjust somebody up a grade or something like that. So this is just a beginning point. We can adjust it as we go. It's to give us a framework so that we can stay competitive. We can do an evaluation and look at it and say, hey, based on, we all know there's been labor shortages in emergency services, law enforcement. If it looks like, given the market, we need to move somebody up a grade or do something like that, we can certainly do that.
And in this, so we have, as a group, are okay with the 2.5 staying as is in the verbiage. Is that okay with everybody? Okay. And then these are actual increases, and step increases that are annual. Anything in here about the COLA? Nothing? No? Okay.
So I don't think there is there, Mayor? That's a separate issue that would be addressed.
Yeah, there's
each year.
nothing in here that makes a COLA mandatory. It is completely up to the county commission every year as you go through the budget. This was just to say, here's how the adjustments in the pay scale would work. Any COLA would be on top of that, and up to the discretion of the county commission.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else before we decide whether to move this forward or not? Commissioners, any other discussion? You like what you see? I'd entertain a motion to move this forward to the full body. Ms. Russell,
I move it to the full body.
I have a motion to move this pay scale to the full body for consideration. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this before we take a vote? Mr. Burton?
Is this going to be going with the rest of the policy book, or are we just doing this for the full body?
My understanding would be this would become part of the entire employee personnel policies, correct?
So we're going to send the whole book forward, policies, all of them.
Well, you've already sent it forward previously. This should join what's already up there and become part of one incomplete recommendation.
And when is the full body going to be looking at it?
You should first be discussing it at the work session, I believe. So Monday night.
Thank you.
We don't show it on the agenda. That was, I think, the reason that question. I know it may have been premature to put it on the agenda since we hadn't approved it, but certainly I think that it will be added. without objection. I don't think there will be.
All right, yeah, and I just thought that was kind of what the discussion was at the steering committee, but obviously if it needs to be added, that's up to the commission to determine if they want to consider it or not.
Yeah, we can add that as an amendment if we want to, if this passes here in just a second. But I do have a motion and a second to move this forward of the implementation of the pay scale. If there's no other discussions, all in favor of moving this forward, say aye. All
Aye.
opposed, the like sign. This implementation of pay scale does move forward and is approved. Item B, inclement weather policy, which is new. Mayor, would you like to chime in on this and kind of tell us what we're doing here?
Yes, sir. As we went through, I think towards the end of last year, we did have an inclement weather policy that was in the initial proposal that was passed. After that, somewhere around February, I think we had a inclement weather condition where we had to shut down or close the offices for a few days. Afterward, myself and my staff, we got together and kind of did a tabletop exercise of how would the proposal have worked in that situation. And we found some holes that needed to be plugged. There was talk in there about employees going to be paid, but it didn't say how. There was two options presented originally. The first option did have the language in there for administrative pay, but the second one did not. So they were just putting that administrative pay in there, which would be in section 4 and section 2. And also there was a question that we wanted to make it more clear of who's making the determination whether or not the offices are closed. I cannot dictate to the other elected officials or constitutional officers that they're closed. I work in coordination with them, but we wanted to make sure that it was specifically spelled out in here that the constitutional officers will determine if their officers are closed, and working with the mayor, and then full-time employees will be granted administrative leave by their department heads and constitutional officers. And the reason why it is full-time employees only is because under our current policy and the language we've got in the recommendation, part-time employees are not eligible for those benefits. So that is what we added in section 2. That was just to clarify whose responsibility it is and that they would be paid by administrative leave. Section 4, which is the next red language, the first sentence just said all employees who report to work will be paid, but it didn't specify a little bit more from that. But we want to make sure it be stated that they will be paid for the time worked if they reported to work that morning and the offices eventually closed. And that in full-time employees who report to work will be paid for time worked, and the remainder of their scheduled shift will be paid in administrative leave. That was not specifically spelled out in the previous proposal, and we wanted to clarify that because we had some questions internally as we were looking through that. And on section 5, you'll see some crossed out language. I believe one of the ones we put in earlier in section 4 kind of made that redundant. So we just suggested taking that out. That way you don't have it in two separate places. And other than that, the only change was a grammatical change at the end of the first paragraph of section 7. I think we had a period and it should have been like a colon. So we just changed that.
Questions, anybody on the committee? Before we consider this in a vote?
I think with the additional language, that certainly clarifies it, and it shouldn't be any room for any misunderstanding on this. I would make the motion to go with this new language.
I have a motion to move this forward to consideration for the full body on these adjustments as it pertains to inclement weather. Do I have a second? Ms. Amber Russell has the second. Any further discussion on this before we go to the vote? If not, all in favor of this moving forward, say aye. All opposed, like sign. This does move forward and it is passed. Item C, anything other under discussion items that this committee would like to discuss? Yes, sir.
I would just like to ask the mayor, how are we doing on personnel? Do we have a lot of open slots? I know we did have. Have we been able to fill most of those, or are we still struggling in some departments?
We've had some success in filling some positions, and we've had some that were there for just a short time. EMS, we have filled all of our EMT and AEMT positions. The only thing we have left open right now is technically we don't have any open paramedic slots, but we have some part-time personnel that are working in place of full-time right now. So we're still trying to recruit those in. Director Beatty had talked to me about, we were kind of looking to see what happened with Wilson County with their pay adjustments. Did it help their labor? And I think after they first advertised it, they had 22 applications come in for their paramedic positions. And I was reviewing theirs recently, and it said that their salaries went up to, for paramedic firefighters, I think it was somewhere around 65. Their salary went up to 65 something. It didn't state what their starting salary was. It just said they go up to this. I will, however, state that if you, with the pay scale you adopted going up to state step 16, we would actually pay our paramedics a few $100s more than Wilson County when you topped out. So hopefully that'll be something we're going to try to start advertising, see if we can get some more here. There was also a different change this time than what we've had in the past, speaking of Director Beatty. At this time, it seems, looking at our staff and looking and talking to Director Beatty, in the past, we've had staff that would work here in another county, where now it seems like they all just work here. We're not sharing them with another county. And so that's hopefully going to help in some of the filling positions in this as we go forward. I am wanting to do a more in-depth look at the emergency services and seeing that Director Beatty and I've talked about this. We're trying to see how we need to do this. Look around different counties. Do we need to look at different shift schedules? Do we need to look at changing times? You know, what is it that seems to be working in other communities? Is that something we need to institute here? This is kind of a review overall to see, is there a change we need to make? So we're hoping to start that process, because right now, as you all know, we're all in the labor market's in flux, emergency services, a lot of other things. Some counties have went from 24/48s to 24/72s. Some of them, instead of doing 24-hour shifts, have done 12-hour shifts. So we're looking in that as in total to see if that's something we need to address there. The Sheriff's Department, I'll be honest with you, I'm not exactly sure if Sheriff Russell wants to cover that. I do think we've had some come in recently, but I'm not sure how many positions he has left available. In Public Works, we've had turnover there. Public Works always has kind of a turnover, and we've had some filled, and then we've had here recently, we've had some go out, I think 4 employees due to COVID. So we're experiencing some issues there, but hopefully with the new pay scale and trying to push that and advertise that going forward, that'll help out.
We did hire Lindsay. You want to introduce her to the group?
Yes, I'm very bad at that. I have to apologize to Lindsay. My wife will tell you I do that a lot now. I apologize. This is Lindsay. She is going to succeed, I will not say replace, Miss Vicky. And she's been training with Miss Vicky for 8 days now, and the training wheels are coming off tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. But she's done very well so far, seems to be fitting in very well. I'm sure as anything else, there's going to be little things here and there as we get to learn to work with her and she learns to work with us and the process is in place. But I think she's going to work out very well. And Miss Vicky has given nothing but a glowing review so far.
There was an opening at senior citizens. Has that been filled?
He actually just came in today. So he's hopefully going to be starting around the 28th, 29th.
Are there any other positions that we need to know about so we can maybe try to help recruit some folks, or pretty much everything covered now?
If you know some people that are paramedics or looking for a full-time job, please refer them to us. We appreciate that. Sheriff Russell, again, I'll turn it over to him if he's got some open positions. And also, we're always looking for somebody on the public works side.
Yeah, right now I've only got one deputy slot that's open. I hadn't filled yet. I've got one in the academy right now. And I just recently, Monday, had one to leave to go to Wilson County Corrections, worked in the jail. And right now I've just got 2 open slots.
I'd like to go back and talking about both of those, whether it's ambulance or the Sheriff's Department, and want to commend the commission for what it did when it looked like things were pretty bleak. We actually gave some raises to both departments prior to what we would normally do as it pertains to the budget. And sounds like it may be perfect, may not be perfect, but it actually was a nice shot in the arm to help to alleviate the stresses from those 2 areas. Of course, I've always said that that's going to be a moving target. What looks good today may not look so good next week as we try to scrap amongst the different areas for personnel, since there are shortages nationwide in both departments. Sheriff Russell?
Yeah, one thing that, we did go up, and I appreciate it for my people getting a raise, but the other agencies around us, they're going up also. So we're taking a step up, they're taking a step up too. So it's everywhere. It's not just here.
Still a moving target.
It's still
That's
moving.
exactly what yes, absolutely. Any other items? If not, public comments at this time? A little bit quieter than the meeting we had Monday night. I'll take a motion to adjourn. I have a motion to adjourn and I have a second. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.